Someone's ignoring you, avoid these three big mistakes, presented in a style he might use, without headings. My friends, in our lives, we will all face times when we feel unseen. There will be moments when others ignore our words, our presence, or our pain. This is part of the human experience, not a reflection of our worth, but a test of our strength. When you are ignored, the first mistake is to let anger dictate your actions. I, too, have known the fire of anger. I have seen it rise in the hearts of men and consume all reason. But anger, when it governs us, becomes a prison. Do not allow another's silence to stir destruction in your soul. Hold your dignity. Let silence be your teacher, not your jailer. The second mistake is believing their silence defines you. Too often we begin to think, I must be unworthy, I must not matter. This is falsehood. The way others treat you is a mirror of them, not a measure of you. Stand tall in who you are. Remember, a tree does not shrink because the sun hides behind the clouds. You too must continue to grow. And the third mistake, perhaps the greatest of all, is abandoning your own voice. Some retreat into silence, thinking it will make the pain go away. But your voice is your power. Use it not to chase attention, but to speak your truth. Continue to show kindness, continue to act with courage, and continue to live with integrity. Even when no one is looking, you are never powerless. You are never invisible to the truth. And if you carry yourself with grace, even in the shadow of being ignored, you will rise. Not in noise, but in presence. Not by forcing others to see you, but by refusing to dim your light. When someone chooses to ignore you, the first and most natural reaction is often anger. It rises quickly, a fire in the chest, a knot in the stomach. You may feel disrespected, diminished, or even invisible. This emotion, though powerful, is not the enemy. It is what you do with it that determines whether you rise above or fall beneath the moment. Anger, when it is left unchecked, becomes a master. It clouds judgment, feeds ego, and urges retaliation. The urge to speak harshly, to lash out, or to make the other person feel what you are feeling may seem justified. But in doing so, you lose something greater than the person who ignored you. You lose your peace, your clarity, and often your dignity. It is easy to believe that responding with fury will force recognition or respect. But rarely does it bring the result one desires. Instead, it creates distance, misunderstanding, and often more silence. There is a strength in restraint that many underestimate. Choosing not to respond in anger is not weakness, it is control. It means you understand that your emotional state does not need to be dictated by the actions of others. When you pause, breathe, and reflect rather than react, you keep your power. And in moments of being ignored, that power is essential. Because how you carry yourself during silence says more about you than any loud outburst ever will. Anger is also a mask for deeper feelings: pain, fear, confusion. Rather than sitting with those more vulnerable emotions, many people jump to rage because it feels strong. But true strength lies in being able to say, "This hurts," and yet still choosing peace. It is the ability to hold pain with grace, to feel rejection without retaliating with bitterness. Those who ignore you may do so out of their own discomfort, insecurity, or selfishness. It may have nothing to do with you at all, but when you let anger take over, you make it about them. You center their behavior instead of your response, and in doing so, you allow their silence to control the narrative. But when you choose to remain calm, when you choose to stay grounded and thoughtful, you are not controlled, you are centered. You take back the story. There is dignity in walking away from provocation without losing your temper. There is quiet wisdom in refusing to let anger stain your voice. The world will give you many chances to be angry. Not all of them deserve your fire. Save it for justice, for truth, for change, not for someone's silence. Your peace is far too precious to be surrendered to a moment of emotional reaction. It is one of the most common and dangerous traps we fall into when we are ignored, believing that their silence is a reflection of our value. We begin to search within ourselves for the reason. Why didn't they respond? Did I say something wrong? Am I not good enough? The mind starts crafting stories, almost all of them rooted in self-doubt. And without realizing it, we begin to shrink not because of what was said, but because of what was not said. This belief that being ignored means being unworthy is deeply harmful. It chips away at self-esteem. It convinces people that their voice doesn't matter, that their presence is forgettable, and that their contributions hold no weight. But this is a lie. The truth is, people often ignore others not because they are unworthy, but because they are overwhelmed, distracted, insecure, or sometimes simply unkind. Their behavior says far more about their inner world than it does about your value. You must remember that your worth is not conditional. It is not something someone else gets to validate or deny. It does not fluctuate based on who listens or responds to you. Just as the ocean remains vast even when no one is standing on the shore, you remain worthy even when no one is clapping, calling, or paying attention. Their silence is not your measure. It is tempting, especially in moments of emotional vulnerability, to internalize rejection, to believe that silence is a judgment. But the world is noisy and messy. People come and go, not always with grace or kindness. Some simply don't have the emotional capacity to meet others with the attention they deserve. And if you let their lack of response become the definition of who you are, you hand them a power they were never meant to hold. You are not defined by someone's ability to see you. You are defined by how you see yourself. When you walk into a room, when you send a message, when you share your thoughts, you do not diminish in value just because someone else doesn't respond. Your ideas, your presence, your energy, they are real and meaningful, even in the absence of applause. Instead of asking, "Why are they ignoring me?" ask, "Why do I need them to affirm me?" That shift in question brings you back to yourself. It reminds you that the validation you seek must first come from within. When you know who you are, when you are anchored in your self-worth, the silence of others loses its power. It no longer feels like a verdict. It becomes what it truly is, a reflection of them, not a statement about you. There is a quiet tragedy in watching someone dim their own light just because no one seems to be looking. When we are ignored, it can feel like our efforts don't matter, like our presence is invisible. And in response, many people begin to retreat. They speak less, smile less, show less of themselves, not because they have nothing to offer, but because they start to believe it's pointless to keep offering it. But growth must not be dependent on attention. The most powerful forms of transformation often happen in silence, in solitude, in spaces where no one is watching. A seed does not stop growing just because no one sees it beneath the soil. The sun does not stop shining because no one steps outside to feel it. And you must not stop becoming who you are meant to be simply because someone else fails to notice. It is tempting to measure our worth by reactions, the likes, the replies, the invitations. But these are fleeting and often unreliable. What is constant, what is truly sacred, is your inner journey, the development of your mind, your spirit, your values. That is the growth that no one can take from you, and it is the growth that often happens when no one is there to applaud. When someone ignores you, you may feel like fading, but fading is not peace, it is surrender. You were not made to shrink. You were made to rise even when the rise is quiet, even when it goes unseen. If you only speak when people listen, if you only shine when people watch, then your light is dependent on their gaze. But if you can continue to grow, to create, to live with passion and care even in silence, then your light becomes constant. And constant light, even if dim to the world, becomes a beacon to yourself. The world is full of noise, and often people are too distracted to see the beauty in front of them. That doesn't mean you should become less beautiful. Keep developing your voice, keep learning, keep healing, keep showing up for your own life, be your own witness, recognize your own progress, celebrate your own quiet victories. There will come a time when others may finally see what you have been growing all along. But whether or not that day arrives, your growth still matters, because the person you are becoming more resilient, more wise, more self-assured is not for their recognition, it is for your freedom. So do not stop just because no one is clapping. Do not pause your journey because someone turned their back. Keep walking, keep blooming. Keep building the life you deserve, even if the only eyes on it are your own. There is something deeply painful about feeling ignored, especially when you've spoken from the heart or shown up with sincerity. In these moments, silence can feel like rejection, like a wall being built between you and the world. And in response, many people begin to silence themselves. They stop expressing their thoughts. They withdraw from conversations. They decide, consciously or not, that their voice no longer matters. But this is one of the greatest mistakes you can make, because your voice is not just a tool for communication. It is a reflection of your identity, your spirit, and your truth. When you abandon your voice, you begin to disappear not physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. You become quieter in rooms where you once had something to say. You start holding back in moments where you used to shine. And though it may feel like a protective act, what it really does is rob the world and yourself of your presence. Silence in response to being ignored is understandable, but silence that becomes self-erasure is not healing, it is harm. Your voice is your power. It is how you declare who you are. It's how you set boundaries, express dreams, ask questions, and share love. To give that up because someone didn't listen is to give them more power than they deserve. It is to make their silence more valuable than your truth. And your truth is worth more than that always. It's important to understand that speaking your truth isn't about forcing others to listen. It's not about demanding space. It's about honoring your own soul. When you continue to use your voice, even when it seems like no one is hearing you, you are standing in self-respect. You are refusing to let someone else's disregard rewrite your story. You are choosing to stay present fully, courageously, unapologetically. There will always be people who don't understand you, who overlook you, or who fail to respond to you. That is not a reason to mute yourself. That is a reason to speak even more clearly, not louder, not in desperation, but in calm certainty. Let your voice be the steady drumbeat of your life, keeping time with your truth. Let it be the whisper that grows into strength, the quiet honesty that refuses to disappear. And if you feel unheard, then become your own listener, write what you feel, sing if words fail, create if silence hurts. Your voice doesn't always have to be loud to be powerful. It simply has to be yours. Let it carry your story, even when no one is asking for it. Because one day, someone will need to hear what you have to say, and more importantly, you need to keep hearing yourself. There is a particular kind of strength that reveals itself not in grand gestures, but in quiet choices in how you carry yourself when no one is watching, when no one is listening, and when no one seems to care. Being ignored can feel like a wound, a dismissal of your presence. It can tempt you to become bitter, to stop caring, to mirror the coldness that's been shown to you. But it is in these very moments when kindness feels undeserved, when courage feels unrewarded, and when integrity feels unnoticed, that your character is truly tested and revealed. Kindness, when it is given freely and not in exchange for recognition, becomes a deep force of healing for others, but especially for yourself. When you continue to treat people with respect, even when you are disrespected, You protect something sacred inside of you. You maintain the softness of your spirit, and you choose not to let the actions of others make you hard. It does not mean you are naive. It means you are brave enough to live with compassion in a world that doesn't always return it. Courage in these moments of being unseen takes a quieter form. It is not always bold or loud. Sometimes it is simply the courage to show up again, to speak again, to offer again, to be present even when your presence feels overlooked. That kind of courage is not for the sake of others. It is for your own growth. Every time you continue despite the silence, you are building something strong within you, a resilience that cannot be faked or borrowed. It is the courage of someone who knows who they are and does not need applause to keep walking. And integrity, perhaps the most important of all, is what you cling to when you could so easily compromise. When you are ignored, when your efforts seem to go unnoticed, there is a subtle temptation to start cutting corners, to become like those who overlooked you, to stop caring. But staying true to your values when it's hard is what builds self-respect. You are not responsible for how others behave, but you are responsible for who you become in response to them. When no one acknowledges your kindness, give it anyway. When no one sees your courage, embody it anyway. When no one praises your integrity, hold on to it anyway. These are not just good habits, they are your foundation. They are what make you unshakable in a world that shifts constantly. There is a quiet nobility in continuing to live with heart, especially when the world goes silent around you. You may not always be recognized in the moment, but these choices shape you into someone deeply grounded and whole. In the end, it is not attention that defines you. It is how you choose to live when no one is looking. That is where true power lies. There is something deeply powerful about choosing to shine when no one is watching. It takes strength to keep showing up as your full self in a world that often overlooks, misunderstands, or ignores you. When someone turns away from you, when they act as if your presence doesn't matter, the temptation is strong to withdraw, to shrink, to make yourself small enough not to feel the ache of being unseen. But this instinct, while human, must be resisted because your light is not meant to be switched on and off at the whim of others. You rise not by demanding to be seen, but by refusing to go dim. You rise by remaining consistent in who you are, by staying rooted in your purpose, and by believing that your worth is not determined by how much attention you receive. The most radiant people are not those who chase the spotlight, they are the ones who become light. And light does not ask for permission to shine. It simply does. When you choose not to dim your light, you send a quiet, unwavering message to the world. I am enough as I am. You stop begging for acknowledgement and start embodying confidence. This doesn't mean arrogance, nor does it mean ignoring the sting of rejection. It means you feel the sting, but you don't let it alter your essence. You feel the coldness, but you don't let it freeze your fire. There will be days when your efforts are invisible, your kindness goes unreturned, and your voice echoes back in silence. But those days are not wasted. Every moment you choose to keep going, to stay kind, to speak truth, and to live fully even when it feels like no one notices, you are building a foundation that no one can take from you. That kind of inner stability is rare, and it is powerful. Do not wait for someone else to validate your brightness. Do not adjust your glow for the comfort of others, or let their silence dictate your shine. The world needs people who are bold enough to be themselves, not louder, not softer, just true. Your light may not reach everyone, and it may not always be reflected back to you, but it will reach the right people, and most importantly, it will always guide you. So continue to rise, rise in silence. Rise in solitude. Rise when they don't look your way. Rise when they doubt you, when they forget you, when they choose to ignore you. Rise not for them, but for you, because your light is not a reaction to their gaze. It is the expression of your soul. Keep shining, thank you.